Building and managing a team has always been one of the most challenging things in our real estate world. And I've been running a team since 2008. So like a small partnership, and then it grew into a team. But I've gone through the ups and downs. I've gone through building a team, it crashing and failing and burning magnificently. It was not fun. A lot of heartaches. But I learned. I mean, I've gone like this with teams. And I should say it's more of a roller coaster ride heading upwards. And I've gotten better at it. And I say the very first thing that I would say mattered the most is me just developing better leadership skills over a long period of time. Because now 2008 to 2025, that's a long time screwing things up. And so I don't want you to go through as big of a learning curve as I did. And so I have these 8 things for you that I want you to pay attention to as you're thinking of building a team. This is a 4-part series. This is part 1. We're going to go over we're going to go over number 1 and number 2 in the 8 parts in this one. And I've got a sheet that I'm going to be reading off of. Yeah, I'm cheating a little bit, but that's okay. I prepared ahead of time, right? Number 1 is going to be defining vision and goals. I'm going to go over this. Number 2 is assessing your current situation, which I think is where we sometimes miss the point, because I've seen people get to number 2 and they're brand new agents. They come into real estate saying, I want to just start a team. And it's usually for the wrong reasons. And more importantly, they don't even have an idea of where the leads are going to come from and who's doing what, right? So with that, let's start with number 1. I think it's the most important one. And I get this from Jim Collins from the book Built to Last, and also from Good to Great. Both are amazing books. In fact, they're in my top 10 books of all time. If you can read those, read them, reread them, please. Defining your vision and goals, and I would add there, defining vision and mission. Really quick, we've done this before in a whole session. Mission is, what do you stand for right now? How do you show up in the world, right? And vision is how you want to show up in the future, meaning what do you want to change as you place things into your world? What is that company that you want to create? What is that change that you want to happen out there? And what are your goals? And so when you're looking at this, it needs to be clear not only to you, it needs to be clear to the people you're going to lead. And here's one sentence I have for you to better understand this. Start by articulating what your team stands for and where it's headed. For example, define your unique value proposition, providing exceptional service and trust and integrity type of thing, so that every team member understands the purpose and direction. For us, I've created, and at this point you've seen it, it's iSpark. It's I, S as in Sam, PARRK, iSpark. And I arranged it that way because I could remember it, right? It's a word, call it kind of a word, right? And so those are our principles. This is what we stand for. And I do this all across the teams. In fact, we're looking at seeing what this would look like to implement into Y Realty. But the point is, these are our principles, and this is how we show up in the world. It sets not only the vision of where we're going, but what we stand for now. And so for you, this really has to be clear. What do you stand for right now? And where are you heading? And write it down. In fact, you should have it down. Say, what is my mission? What is my vision? And then the goal. Right? With goals, I have here, break down big goals into smaller milestones or KPIs, right? Key performance indicators. Or you can read that great book, Measure What Matters. They talk about OKRs. Those are great as well. But for each team member that you have here, one of the things that we miss is, yes, you have a vision and goal for the team as a whole, but what are the goals for each team member that's coming into the team? Like, do you have a sheet that outlines this? I would challenge you to create a sheet. Like, I need to understand what every person's goal is. And it usually revolves around finances, right? But then the finances feeds something else emotionally into these team members. And I need to know what that is. And so I simply start with, when they're coming in, I help them and I say, okay, let's go through this and create a process document. And I used to call it the blueprint, but in essence, this is where we write down our goal. Right? We make it a SMART goal, right? We make it, here's SMART, and I wrote this down. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. We make sure that it has those, because sometimes we create these goals or these priorities that we have for our agents or even for ourselves, and they're very loose. And so here on this sheet, I need to know what my goal is. Why is this important to me? And what are the actions? What are the 3 action steps I'm going to do to achieve this, right? And what are the strategies behind it? And so I've outlined this. If you need this sheet, and I did a whole podcast on this, if you need this sheet, just let me know. I'll send it over to you. But the point of this is, I need a vision. I need a mission, and I need your goals ready to go for each individual agent. So that's going to take some work from you. Vision and mission from you, and then identify the goals for each team member coming through. And beforehand, have a sheet so you're going to go over with them. They need to know that you're invested in them. And they need to know that they're important to you, because it's about the team. Building a team is about the team. It's about the growth of these agents. It's not about you. Number 2, assessing current situation. Here's what I wrote down. And I wrote this down so I wouldn't forget it. It says, before expanding your team, take stock of your current business. This is one thing we don't do often. It's like, where's my business coming from? How much am I earning on my own, right? And what does the team look like as far as staff? Because usually there's one agent, there may be an admin, there may be a TC, and that's when you start thinking, great, I need to bring in a buyer's agent or a listing agent or multiple agents as a whole, right? Examine your workload. Finances, we talked about finances last week in the podcast. Workload, finances, and market conditions to gauge if you're truly ready to grow. We don't often do that. We just jump into things and you're like, I have a feeling this is going to be good, right? I'm getting a whole bunch of leads from Zillow or from this place and that place. It's like you need to understand, as the leads are flowing through, how much are you netting, right? And this is where the assessment comes in. If you're netting a certain amount, can you afford, with the amount that are coming through, leads, can you afford to divvy some of these out and feed the team member that's coming in so they can make a living, they can grow, and they can do amazing things? It's not about you. Remember, that's about your team member. A good sign that it's time to add a team member is when you have more leads or clients than you can handle alone. For example, if you're consistently closing around 1 deal per week, roughly 50 transactions a year, you're likely at capacity and risking burnout. That's an exact example for me. I was at 52 transactions a year, and I was like, this is it. Like, I cannot handle anymore. I've got a TC. She's maxed out. I've got an admin. They're barely keeping up. And I can't even think. It's like, this is crazy. So that's when I decided, hey, I think it might be good to look at bringing somebody else in that could help me with some of these. And I knew going in, I didn't know exactly what it would look like, because I made the mistake of not assessing and writing down everything. This was back in 2008. But I made the mistake of saying, well, not knowing exactly how much I was going to get a pay cut on. I was like, yeah, I know it's going to be some pay cut, but I didn't estimate how much of a pay cut I was going to get. And so that was an adjustment for me of about 2-3 years before I reached the same amount. And then obviously it surpassed it, but it took a while. I took a massive pay cut, but I also gained a lot more control of my life, a lot more control of me and what I could do. And it started shifting my business so that I could be more present in my business, growing it And instead of just being reactive and saying, that client needs help, that client needs help. Oh, wow, email, text, inspection, and this and that. So as you're looking at this, make sure that you assess your current situation well. And let me leave you with one sentence here. I have research local trends, please, inventory levels, average days on market, and ensure that your growth plan aligns with these external factors, because sometimes you don't realize that your market is shifting and that lead source that you have is no longer going to work the same. And I'm watching some states have a lot more cities where the inventory is growing, and now all of a sudden the same type of leads aren't closing. And so pay attention to those nuances and put that into your goals, your specific goals, right? And then when you sit down with your agents and you're asking, well, where do you plan to grow your business? Let's take a look at your database, your sphere. Let me help you put it into this system that we have, our CRM, and then go from there. By the way, CRM we're talking about in the next few days. That is a wrap. This episode is brought to you by abrillianttribe.com. I keep on forgetting to say that at the beginning, but hopefully you visit us. Have an awesome day. This is part 1 of 4.